Hi, Andy Herringshaw with Tractor Innovations. Today I'm in Canby, Oregon to show you the installation of a remote hydraulic kit onto this Kubota L3010. This is absolutely the most affordable and easiest way to get a set of remote hydraulics on your tractor. Today we're going to be installing this for the demo to the rear so I can install a hydraulic top link. I sell these on my website. Check out right here below. I have lots of different links for different size tractors, and I can customize those if you need a different length. But this kit is going to go on easily installed with no drilling right here underneath the loader valve to give you remote function that is run by your loader circuit. So when we install this to the rear, we can run a hydraulic top link or any other implement you could hook up to your rear, including balers, basically anything with a hydraulic cylinder. Run to the front, you can also run a grapple or any other implement. I've had people install these for bale grabbers and things like that. Anything that operates with hydraulics on the front of the tractor. Check out my website right below for all the different makes and models that I build these for. Today it's going on a Kubota, but New Holland, John Deere, newer tractors, older tractors, we can get a solution for you. This kit comes absolutely complete with all the hydraulics, hoses and fittings, brackets to mount this up with no drilling, all the hardware, zip ties. Our installation should use just a few simple tools and can often be done in under an hour. So stick with me, I'll show you all the steps to get a remote hydraulic kit on your tractor. First step in the installation is to put this bracket right here underneath your loader valve. So I've got my 1/2-inch ratchet ready, and let's put that bracket on. With the bracket in place, I'm ready to mount the valve. So I've got 1/2-inch wrench and ratchet and the valve mounting bag that I'm going to dump into my magnetic tray. I've got the male coupler tips here. I can set those out of the way. Those are for installing on an implement later. And I've got my hydraulic kit, so just uncurl those hoses and let it sit with the long hoses kind of pointing up and towards the front of the tractor. I've got 2.5-inch bolts. Put a washer on there. The washer is just for looks, so it looks really nice. Slide that through the valve. There we go. The 2 bolts go right onto that bracket. Lock washers and nuts onto the back of those bolts and tighten the valve onto the bracket. Now's a great time to put your knob on. So you got a knob and a larger lock washer. Make sure you don't use this one earlier. This is 3/8, those are 5/16. So if you accidentally used your big one here somewhere, go find it. It needs to go on your knob. Thread that into the piston. And often this piston will start to turn before you get that knob quite as tight as you want. Here it went pretty good, but I'm going to give it just a little more turn. So you can grab onto this piston on the very outside of it, outside the circlip, with a pair of vice grips or other pliers. And actually I'm going to slide this in so I make sure I'm not pinching this inside part that has to go into the piston. If you mar that up, you're going to have leaks. It's not going to work right. So with that pushed in, I'm going to grab that piston. Really get it tight. Now that lock washer is biting, it'll be permanent. That valve pulls in and out very nicely, and that valve is well mounted. To connect this diverter valve into the loader hydraulics, we are going to disconnect two hoses from right here where the rubber hoses meet the steel lines on the loader arm. Newer tractors have quick couplers right up here on top of the loader valve that are super easy to connect. On these older tractors, if you were to take the loader off the tractor, this entire loader valve would go with it, and your quick couplers are on the tractor side, the flow side of the valve. So I need an 11/16 and a 5/8 wrench to crack these open. But before we do that, let's decide on which circuit we're going to run this to. On Kubotas, they almost always have the colors labeled here. White and yellow are the lift circuit. Blue and red are the dump circuit. This tractor is going to be getting hydraulics to the rear just for this demo, and then we are going to finally put them to the front. If you are installing something on the front of the tractor, you almost always want to use blue and red, the dump circuit. That is going to allow you to always have your lift function, and you just trade away your dump function in order to run this implement, whatever you've got on the front. For the rear, I often like to use the lift circuit, the white and the yellow, because that lets you have the float function. You can set your loader up at a convenient spot, pull this knob, the loader is going to be sitting right there wherever you left it. Forward and back motion will control whatever you've got hooked up to the rear. Today we're going to go ahead and hook this up to blue and red, and it can run a hydraulic top link just fine. We're going to demo with the hydraulic top link, and then the final installation is going to be to the front, and it always makes sense to have it with the blue and red dump circuit to the front. One extra thing to think about is lots of loader valves have what's called the regenerative circuit. That's on the dump circuit, your right and left movement. When you are pushing right on the loader lever, dumping the bucket, it is actually applying pressure to both sides of that hydraulic cylinder. What that does is keep the bucket from dumping too quickly. If you just released all pressure and let it pull a vacuum on the back side of that hydraulic cylinder, it could just dump too quickly. That gives just a little complication to your dump circuit. Your hydraulic cylinders will not push quite as hard hooked up to a dump circuit as they would if you are hooked up to the lift circuit. So just something extra to think about as you are deciding which circuit to hook up to. So we are hooking up to our blue and red circuit. So I'm gonna look, we've got this nylon keeper here. It's got a big zip tie. That's gonna need to come off because I'm gonna need to take two of these hoses out of the sleeve to curve back and interact with the diverter valve. Before you disconnect any hydraulics, take your loader lever and move it to all four positions to make sure all the pressure is out of this system. And just so nothing else moves at any point, I like to go ahead and lower the 3-point hitch and release any other hydraulics on the tractor. If you have an existing third function valve, you'd need to turn the key on, click that button back and forth to make sure all the pressure is out, nothing is gonna move when you disconnect the hydraulics. Important to do that right before you're ready to disconnect things, because even a change in temperature or sitting out in the sun can create pressure in a hose that could make it difficult to connect when you go back to reconnect. If your colors have worn off or there's any confusion about which circuit is which hose is which, you can always literally put your hand on the hydraulic cylinder and trace it back to the hoses. So red and blue, I see blue here, the red has worn off, but I'm looking at the hoses coming back from the dump circuits and I can tell it's the top two. As I go to disconnect this, I like to do them just one at a time. Disconnect red, connect red. Disconnect blue, connect blue. But I can tell I'm gonna have a hard time getting my wrench in here to work on blue if red is in place. So I'm gonna disconnect both of these and I'll end up with both hoses disconnected at the same time. That's fine, it just means we gotta keep track of things. All right, with red disconnected, I'm gonna pull it out of this sleeve And since red is in front, it's going to go to the front port on this diverter valve. To tighten this onto the valve, have your 3/4 inch wrench handy. That's what the fitting is, and your 11/16 tightens it on. The red hose is connected back to the diverter valve. Now I'm going to move the blue one, and it is tight in here. I can hold this pretty well, but I don't know if I can totally get it loose. If not, I will need to disconnect this keeper, and I can move these hoses around just a little bit, but I'm going to try to do it without that. Let's see if I can get things to move enough. There we go. It's coming. You may have to disconnect this. It could even be just the angle of this pipe is a little different on yours, and you can't get a wrench on it. With the hoses connected from the loader valve back here to the diverter valve, now I can take the short hoses coming off the diverter and they'll hook right back here to the loader. The blue was the lower hose, and the blue is in the rear on the loader valve and on the diverter valve. So I can take this rear hose coming off the diverter and hook it right back here. I want to leave a nice bit of flexibility in this hose. So I'm going to see if it makes more sense high, even low there. That's going to keep the hoses really contained, and there's plenty of flex there. So this hose coming off the rear of the diverter, this is the blue. We're going to go right back here to the blue pipe. These are JIC type connections. They seal up internally, so you do not have to crank these crazy tight. I like to say just get them wrist tight. You don't have to put your whole arm into it. And the blue connection is finished there. Take your time here. You can get a really professional looking installation here. You could put these back in the sleeve, but these have a little more hose, a little more flexibility to the side. I kind of feel like that would constrain them, so I think they're going to be happier out there by themselves. All right, the diverter valve is plumbed into the loader valve, so it's got control, and we just now need to take these remote couplers and put them where we want them to be. I'm going to show you the installation to the rear of this tractor and demo with a hydraulic top link, and then we're going to finish by actually finishing the installation with these couplers to the front. So you can do either or. I even have lots of customers that will change it by the season. They've got a snow plow, they put them up front. For the summer, they hook something else up to the rear, and it's just a matter of moving these couplers from the front to the rear. So to get these couplers to the rear, we're just going to look for a path. We've got a subframe underneath there for the loader that we can zip tie hoses to. We want to avoid anything sharp or moving like the brake pedals, or if you happen to have exhaust under your tractor, avoid those. But we want to come up inside the roll bar at the rear of the tractor. All right, I've got the hoses pulled up inside the roll bar and above the axle where they'll be well protected under the tractor. And I've got a lot of flexibility of the hose because it's not quite pulled into place at the front. when I get it all secured and zip tied under there, these will be just the right length hoses. So I've got these couplers, and they are going to mount onto a T-bracket. I've got a hardware bag that is the remote couplers, and I'm going to dump that into my magnetic bowl. And the way these couplers go onto the T-bracket is this coupler has a big ridge in the middle. The U-bolt goes over that, and that slides right into the T-bracket. Put lock washers and nuts on the bottom. So I just need a place for this T-bracket to mount. On lots of tractors, there's room to mount here to the roll bar, and there would be on this tractor if they hadn't put this fender panel quite so close. You could drill into this, but on the bottom of this little toolbox on the back of your tractor are some nice holes, so we're just going to use one of those. A washer onto the short bolt that comes with the kit. And a lock washer and nut to hold it in place. All right, if I put that coupler into place, that's going to give us a very nice placement for attaching and detaching implements here, and it's up out of the way of your 3-point hitch. If you've got a different geometry on your tractor and you need more space here, you can move these couplers off to the side and find another place for them. But I'm going to finish attaching them with the U-bolts here, and then we'll hook up a hydraulic top link. It's important as you tighten these not to over tighten them. If you squeeze this too tight, your couplers are not going to go in and out smoothly. So when we've got these just reasonably tight, we can test them to make sure a coupler goes in and out, and then we can hook up the hydraulic top link. These are breakaway type couplers, which means to connect a fitting, all we have to do is shove it in, and to disconnect it, pull it out. Push in to connect, pull out to disconnect. Just that easy. Go ahead and test both of your couplers that they'll connect and disconnect before you leave this into your tractor. All right, I'm gonna put the hydraulic top link in place. We'll demo this, and then we will undo it and connect the hoses to the front for the final piece of the installation. All right, let me show you how this kit works. I've got the loader and the 3-point hitch up just a little bit, because with the engine off, I can only do things that the gravity is going to power. And then I'll turn on the engine and show you how it works. With the knob pushed in, I've got completely normal loader function. I've got my lift function and my dump function. You can see both of those move. When I'm ready to run something on the rear, say move the hydraulic top link, I'm going to pull out on this knob, and I can run my tractor just like this. Since we've got this kit hooked up to the dump circuit, right and left movement is going to control my hydraulic top link. There we can see it go down. And I still have control of my loader lift function. The only thing that's frozen is the dump function. So now I'm going to turn on the engine and show you both of those functions. We'll start with the knob in, so I'll have completely normal loader function. Got my lift and dump circuit. When I'm ready to adjust the hydraulic top one, I set the dump angle right where I want it, pull out on the knob. Now I can control that hydraulic top one. And I can, of course, still lift and lower the motor and control the hydraulic top lift. When I'm ready to go back to the loader, push in the knob. All right, that shows you how it controls that hydraulic top link. Now I'm going to take it off of the rear, move it to the front for his grapple and other implements. We'll finish the installation there. Now we're going to take the remote hoses and run them to the front of the tractor to run a grapple or other implement that would attach to your bucket area. So these hoses come out of the diverter valve kind of forward. So we're just going to find a protected area inside the loader arm, create a curve in the hoses, and then run them along the hoses on the inside of the loader arm. Now we're ready to attach these remotes to the T-bracket on the front of the tractor. Lots of tractors will have a shield over these pipes that we could drill and mount this bracket to. On this tractor, there is not, but there are these two mounting points on the sides. So what we can do is remove one of these bolts and bolt this T-bracket in with the same bolt. We'll need a little longer bolt. We've got a metric 8 by about 1.5 inches bolt that's going to go back in there. And that will allow these couplers to sit right here facing sideways to attach any implement you want to add. I've got a 13mm socket queued up. All right, as you go to attach the hoses, let's just take a second and make sure we don't have these twisted. I'm looking all the way back to the valve to make sure they aren't going around each other. And these will get zip tied here to the loader frame to hold everything in place. And here we go. We can drop them into the final location against the T-bracket. Set the U-bolt over the middle, the widest groove on that coupler, and tighten it in with the bolts. Well, there you have it, the easiest and most affordable way to get a set of remote hydraulics on your tractor. Today on a Kubota, but I build these for all makes and models of tractor. With the simple push and pull of this knob, you can activate a remote or deactivate it and control it from your loader control lever. This simple kit lets you use a made in the US valve and hoses sourced from a US company. Remember to check out my website below and let me know how I can help you with your tractor. Thanks for watching.